I'm going to be showcasing the 15 rare shaders in Destiny 2. But by popular request, I'll be leaving out all the shaders that are only available through eververse, so every shader in this video will be attainable in-game or unlocked through special offers that are non-eververse related. With that being said, let's get right into the rankings. Starting off at number 15 is the Gilded Frost shader, owned by 9.71% of players. This is rewarded for completing an Empire hunt on Master difficulty without dying. It's not really as rare as most of the other shaders on this list, but it still made it in the 15 spot. At number 14 is the ENSILVERED SNARE, owned by 7.94% of Guardians. This is rewarded for completing the Grasp of Avarice dungeon without any fireteam members dying. And actually a decent amount of players have this, and I was surprised that it made the list because a flawless dungeon run really isn't too difficult. Coming in at number 13 is the Ancient Believer, owned by 5.75% of players. This one is rewarded for completing every challenge in the Garden of Salvation raid. I'm not a fan of Garden, and doing all the challenges is definitely not something the average player is doing, so I'm not surprised this is rare. Number 12 is the Glorious PATINA. At the time I'm making this, it's owned by 4.96% of players, but it's probably going to become a lot less rare as time goes on, and will be less rare by the time this video comes out. It's because it's awarded for going flawless, and was only released this season. More and more people are going to go flawless as time goes on, so like I said, expect it to become a lot less rare. A lot of people are saying the shader is basically photo finish but gold, because the glow effects, and it looks really nice. If only going flawless wasn't so painful. In the 11th spot is the Battle Tempered shader. This is owned by 3.77% of players. This is earned by completing the Iron Banner matches and earning rank ups from Lord Saladin. The only reason it's rare is because it was recently released, so expect it to become more common the next time Iron Banner is out, which I actually think it is this week. Coming in 10th place is the CRYPTIC Legacy, owned by 3.64% of players. This is rewarded for completing every encounter in the Deepstone Crypt without any fireteam members dying. Till making this video, I didn't even know there were shaders for doing flawless raid runs. It's kind of disappointing that you only get a shader, not a ship or a sparrow, but oh well, classic Bungie making the hardest content in the game unrewarding. At number 9 is the Corrective Protective shader, owned by 3.23% of players. This one is rewarded for completing a flawless Vault of Glass run. Out of all the raids to go flawless in, Vault is definitely one of the easier ones, but it's still a super hard task to do. Coming in 8th place is the Cognition of the 9 shader, owned by 3.03% of players. This shader was available back in the early Destiny 2 days when Trials of the 9 was a thing. I'm pretty sure it was just a rank up reward, but it's still probably rare because Trials of the 9 were so short-lived. At number 7 is the Ancient Defender. This is owned by 2.73% of players and is rewarded for doing a flawless Garden of Salvation run. Gosh, that must be torture. Coming in at number 6 is the DIVINITY'S Rarest, owned by only 2.28% of players. This one's rewarded for doing a flawless Vow of the Disciple run, and I can't imagine how hard that must be, so no shock at all that this one's rare. At number 5 is the Sundered Flesh shader, owned by just 1.87% of players. This time it's rewarded for doing a King's Fall flawless run. King's Fall is super long and there's a lot of chances to make one mistake that ruins it all, so no surprise this is one of the rarest flawless raid shaders. Coming in 4th place is the OPALINE shader. This is owned by 1.43% of players and is rewarded for a Root of Nightmares flawless run. This is the last flawless raid shader on the list, and I'm actually surprised this is the rarest one. Root of Nightmares is an easier raid, but the shader is probably rare since it's the most recent one released. Now onto the top 3. In 3rd place is the 3 Connection shader, owned by just 0.86% of players. This shader is only available through a promotion on Bilibili, which is a Chinese video sharing site. I don't really know all the details on how to get it, but I'll link a video in the description for how this one was attainable. Or is, I don't really know if it still is. At number 2 is the Terra Chroma, owned by just 0.37% of players. You can get it from buying a book on the website Bookwalker, and apparently it's not attainable anymore, so don't go trying to get it, but once again, I'll link a video that explains how it was attainable. Finally, the rare shader in the entire game is Small Luminance, owned by only 0.01% of players. This one was given out for raising a total of $10,000 during Bungie fundraiser events. This one is given out alongside the Core of the Nova emblem, which is the 4th rarest emblem in the game. By the way, if you haven't seen my 25 rarest emblems video, it should show up on the screen now, so go check that one out. Now that you know how to get most of these shaders, let me know if anyone is going out to try and get any of them. Although they are just shaders, so who really even cares?